Test 1, 2, 3, 3, 2, 1. What's up, YouTube? Welcome back to another video of We Don't Miss, where we're going to tackle tough issues about mental health, finding the best version of you, anxiety, depression, fear, and personal wellness through taking care of yourself, fitness, and nutrition. Today's topic is about conformity and nonconformity. And there's a lot to tackle here, and I'm no expert. And I'm actually a little nervous talking about this because a lot of other topics I can just spitball because I have a lot of personal insight on these matters. And this one is something that I think everybody's going to approach differently. And I'd be grateful if you left a comment down below on how you feel about this topic or anything that I say. Please agree or please disagree. This is meant to be an open discussion. So let's get started. Conformity and specifically nonconformity. Why do I want to talk about this? Because all of the videos and ideas that I'm trying to present are ideas that I think a lot of us are struggling with, but not openly talking about. Maybe we're writing little one-liners on social media, or maybe we're having a drink at the bar with our friends and we discuss these issues in a roundabout way. But I really want to get down to this core issue on a level that is deeper and can hopefully resonate with you. And so, like all videos, when I say you, I mean me. So let me talk about the way that I feel right now about my current environment that surrounds me and conformity. First of all, we have to define conformity, and I'm going to read it right off my notes. It is to comply with rules, standards, or laws. So that's three different things. So before we discuss the definition, let me tell you kind of how I feel in my day-to-day basis, and let's see if this can relate or is relatable to you. I think that a lot of us feel that we're losing our own identity, our own thought process, our own childhood dreams of what we want to be, what we thought we'd become, what we think we can achieve, because we are being handcuffed by a society that we created that we thought was going to be amazing, such as the big house, the fancy cars, the fat bank accounts, the cool jobs, the cool parties, the lavish vacations, all that stuff, only to realize that that has got us in a rat race or a hamster loop, if you will, of doing things, excuse me, of doing things for an end result that leads to you doing something again that you may or may not necessarily want to do. And specifically what I'm talking about, let's just talk about work. So a lot of people work somewhere that they don't like, in a place that they're not passionate about what they're working on or what the mission is or what the core values of that company is. They just, meaning you, just got into a job after high school or college and stayed with that job because after a couple years there was some vertical mobility and you started making a decent paycheck, and that paycheck was what allowed you to just make ends meet to live in this life, which that's a high price tag. And if you are in a position where you're living that life, I'm not here saying that you're in the wrong or everything that you're doing is wrong. Like, there's some influencers and people on social media that are like, oh, if you're grinding it out on a 9 to 5 and you're not an astronaut like you wanted to be, then your life's all jacked and you did it all wrong and blah, blah, blah. And then the next sentence is, buy my program if you want to become an astronaut today. Look, if you're out there doing the grind and you're making money and you can put food on the table and you have a roof over your head and you got two nickels to scratch together, you're doing way better than most people. So I am anti-influencer on this one and saying, congratulations. Congratulations to you. Pat your back. I know it's been a hard day at work. I know that bills are hard to pay. I know that prices are going up, and every trip to the grocery store, every restaurant you go out to, the bill seems to have increased by 10, 20, 30%, and it just keeps happening. But if you're still grinding and out there making it, I applaud you. However, if you are grinding it out and you do not like going to work every single day, and I mean, nobody really likes work, because to quote my dad, if work was fun, it'd be called fun. So you do have to lace up the bootstraps and do something you don't like to do to make some money, because no job is glamorous all the time, even being a rock star, a musician, or whatever. And we know that because we've seen so many of those star people, including athletes, nosedive, and they have all the money in the world. So that doesn't solve all the problems. So, but the difference is I know that some people go to work with fear and anxiety and dread because they live in a hostile work environment. And that's not good. And so now when we talk about conforming to societal norms, meaning conforming to going to that job that you hate so you can barely pay your bills and barely pay your rent, that is when it is the time to not conform to societal standards. Yes, you can break out of that. And there's multiple ways that you can break out of that, including transferring jobs. So if you already have a skill that other companies want, then just do a lateral transfer to a new company. So maybe the paycheck is the same, but maybe your quality of life at work is exponentially better, which is going to make everything else better. It's not going to seem like such a struggle with everything else outside of work. If you don't have a skill that is easy to lateral transfer, you need to invest all of your time and all of your money that you have into a new skill and set a goal while you're at your current job saying, hey, in 6 months, I'm going to take this online program or get the certificate or go to community college or do whatever it takes to get yourself out of that position. Because if you don't do anything to get yourself out of that position, then things will remain the same. And it's really hard for me or anyone else to sit down and listen to your woe is me story about how you hate your job when you have no plan and you're not executing anything to get out of that current environment. If nothing changes, nothing changes, right? So back to conformity and nonconformity. We talked about the definition, which is rules, standards, or laws. So let's break that down. Laws, yes. Let's just kind of put that under one big umbrella and say that most laws, when you think about like big laws and the police and getting arrested and stuff, you should probably conform to those laws. I am not an anarchist. So laws, sure. Now, rules, maybe, because rules constantly change depending on the dynamic of the situation and what the priority is. And rules are governed by people who wrote those rules. And usually, when you have big rules that are made, they're predicated on what we're about to talk about at a lower level, which is standards. But usually, several standards had to be put in place and executed and had to be effective in order for a standard to be made. So, standards, maybe. So, laws, yes, standards, maybe. But then rules, when we get down to rules, this is where I get very, very flexible, because although I was in the military for 22 years, I am not a giant rule follower, because I find a lot of holes in rules, because rules tend to be made by people that are in a high position that tend to have lost touch with what the actual truth is, what we call the ground truth in the military of what's really going on. So, for example, and I'm not blaming the leadership, this is just a time-based problem. So, if you have an individual that starts at a company, he's fresh out of college, maybe he's got an MBA, he or she, and they're in mid-level management, and then they work their way up to senior level management, and then they become one of the senior people, i.e. like a C-suite executive. That takes the better part of 15 or 20 years or more in a company to accomplish. As that individual is moving up on their upward trajectory, there are things happening at the bottom level, the lower level of the company, that they might not be in tune with unless they have good managers and good directors that are feeding them that information. But that information is a lot to take in. And a lot of times at that level, when rules are made and trickle down to the bottom, it ends up kind of sounding like this to the people at the bottom. What the heck are they thinking? Do they even know what's going on down here? Like, that's never going to work. It's not even possible. It might sound something like that. So now you have this disconnect, right? And the disconnect is, like I said, just a time-based problem where individuals lose sight of what's happening on at the worker bee level. And what makes a great executive, all great CEOs that books have been written about and that they do case studies on and they teach in master's level programs, these were all people that were somehow able to still make the connection from the highest levels down to the lowest levels. And they ended up being nonconformist because they knew what was going on at the lower levels. So when a board of directors was getting together and one person said, I think we should do this, and everybody was just not thinking about it because they were too busy on their vacation in the Hamptons the last weekend, or they're just wondering about what car they're going to buy next or how big their bonus is going to be that year, they're all like, I agree, because they don't have to think. And then the good leader is actually critically thinking and analyzing, and they're like, hey, I see some holes in this problem, and I think we need to evaluate these certain topics. And they are a nonconformist. So when we talk about levels of nonconformity, I don't want you to think, like I said, an anarchist. When I said that earlier, nonconformist doesn't mean that you're going against the grain so much that you're just enemy number one. That just means that you're looking at a problem set or standards or rules that people have been following forever. And we've all heard that phrase, well, this is the way that we've always done it. And then you realize, well, why are we doing it this way? Because that rule or that standard was made 10 years ago, and technology has advanced, and our people are a lot smarter, and we're more capable, or whatever the case may be. Now, here's the critical point of being a nonconformist. You can attack this one or two ways. And in all my videos, when I give problem sets, I give solutions. Are they the best solutions? Who knows? They're my solutions, though. And I feel like I'm speaking from a point of clarity because I've been in this position. I started in the military as an E1, the lowest rank that you can be, moved my way up to a senior enlisted person, and then became an officer and worked my way up to a senior officer. And so I've seen both sides of the fence. And the bad way to go about being a nonconformist is to do what I did early on in my career and sit there and roll your eyes and shake your head. And when an order's given, or when you're in a job and the tasks are given via some PowerPoint or an email, you're just kind of like, whatever, and you blow it off, and then you undermined the chain of command by telling everybody else at your level, I think this is bullshit, blah, blah, blah. The people in the military are laughing right now because they know this story. And you probably know it too, because I've talked to my brother who's been in corporate finance and commercial real estate forever, and he says the same thing happens in the civilian sector. So what you don't want to do is go about it the way that I just explained. What you do want to do, however, is if you see a problem set that you don't like and you think that you're about to be a nonconformist and you're not going to toe the company line, or you're going to go against the grain, whatever the saying is these days, you have to have a solution. right there. Point number one. If you don't have a solution, then I worked with a Navy SEAL for quite some time, learned a lot from him. And I remember on his departing speech to the command, he said, if you do not have a solution and or you don't have an opinion or a voice on this matter, then you don't have an opinion or a voice. And I thought that was great. And I think a lot of people are going to be like, that's super harsh. I might not be able to speak up at my meeting. I have a voice. Well, if you have a voice, you need to learn how to articulate and get that across. Because if you don't say anything, your ideas in your head mean nothing. So that gets to the opposite of the bad version of being a nonconformist. And the good version is, and here's where, spoiler alert, I'm gonna hit you. I'm gonna flip the script at the end. It's gonna be like a ending you weren't suspecting. If you have a solution, you need to start thinking about what that solution would look like in the planning phase and the execution phase. Because when you bring up that idea, nobody likes the good idea fairy in a meeting, because that just makes the meeting go 30 extra minutes, because now people are juggling around these hypotheticals, and it's not good form in a meeting where you're supposed to be productive. So if you actually think about your idea and you think about the planning phase, the execution phase, the fallacies of your argument, and everything in between that somebody can poke the holes in your Swiss cheese model, and you come with a solid argument, that's how you articulate. And you articulate early and often, not later. Nobody likes when you're, if you have a 5-step plan and you're on step number 4, about to roll into number 5, and you're like, hey, I don't think this is working. I think we should do this. And it's a completely different plan. I'm already discarding you. You're too late to the game. We're already moving out. I'll listen to your ideas. There might be a good one in there, and I might somehow try and weave a little bit of it in, but we're not changing the whole plan. So thinking about planning and execution, and then also mentioning what you want to do early and often, meaning that you're not throwing a hand grenade into an idea that's already been rolling for days, weeks, or months. So what that's going to look like is whatever position you're in at work, everybody has a boss at whatever level. So whenever you're getting up with your boss and your people in a meeting and they're starting to talk about, hey, this is what we're doing in a month, 3 months, 6 months, or for the year, if you're just snoozing in that meeting or just drinking a coffee and kind of scrolling on your phone, you're already going to end up like that guy or gal that's trying to hand grenade that plan in the end. And that's not good. So if you're paying attention from the beginning and the whole time leading up in the planning stage to the actual execution, you're thinking about this solution, this non-conformist solution that's going against the grain, and you interject at the right time and say, hey, I've taken in all the data. I've done some research on my own. I've looked at some other ways that people have done this, and there are other solutions to get to the same outcome we desire. And I think we should consider this. And then you're going to get some people thinking. You're going to get some people writing down notes. You're going to get some people approaching you after the meeting, say, hey, could you expand on this a little bit? And now you are inserting your idea, your nonconformist idea, into a plan that might have just been executed just like we always do it, but it's not the most efficient. And now people are taking stock of your value and your knowledge and what you can bring to the table. So the next thing you know, you might be at a meeting an echelon higher than you, a level higher than you next month, next quarter, whatever it is. And it's like, hey, here's this individual that brought up a good idea. Go ahead, roll the PowerPoint, Bob or Sally. Let us see what you got. And then you give your plan. And once you give your plan, now here's the other critical thing. You need to know your role. You need to know your position in that company, and you need to be grateful that you got your idea out there. Maybe you were called up to the big leagues and you got to present your idea. If they take nothing out of that, here's still your win. They saw your face. They saw your face. They saw that you're a critical thinker, and they saw your ideas, and they're going to know your name. That's awesome. That's a huge win. They might take something out of your plan, even if it's only one thing, and integrate it. And you might not even see it come to fruition because at your level, you might not be able to see behind the curtain and see what happens during the execution process, but that's not up to you. I've seen so many people with good ideas that raise their hand and they're getting a lot of traction. And then when it's like, okay, thanks, Bob. Thanks, Sally. Like, that's all we got. Go back to your cubicle. They get so deflated. Like, oh, I thought my plan was going to be like the end all be all. And I don't even know what they were expecting, like some kind of medal or award or to be on the news or get promoted, like spot promoted, like, oh, you're so smart. You're the owner of the company now. No, know your role. Your position is your position. And if you're called up in front of the spotlight to give some ideas, give your ideas and then carry on smartly. That's a great win. That's way better than being the person, like I said, who's going to flame spray an idea 6 months down the road and they really weren't paying attention in meetings previously. So, to end the paradigm, the plot twist that I told you about, if you're one of those people that is at work or in life in general, and you just feel like everybody's conspiring against you, and you have all these whiz bang ideas that are just so much better than everybody else's, and nobody's listening to you, first you have to ask yourself, well, why is nobody listening to me? Am I even speaking? Are you even speaking? Because if you're not speaking, well, then, yeah, nobody's listening to you. So let's start with that point. I'm being a little harsh here and getting a little militant about it, but if you're not speaking, nobody can know what your ideas and your thought process is. Step one. If you are thinking and speaking, are you speaking at the right time? Are you speaking in the beginning stages of an idea being crafted toward a specific end state? Or are you firebombing a plan at the end because you've just been anxiety ridden and pissed off the whole time that this just doesn't sound good, and you've bit your tongue till you just can't hold it anymore, and then you're just blah in a meeting? That's bad too. Now, if you have ideas and you're speaking and you have the right timing, meaning you're getting in on the ground floor, you're in the pre-planning stages of something, you're working with the people around you saying, hey, I got some ideas, I'm throwing this on the wall, let's see what sticks. And you're doing that at the right level. And then you go into a meeting locked and loaded and you present something that sounds really good. This is the plot twist. There are other people in that room who are the people that we're talking about that you don't want to be. They're the people scrolling on their phone. They're the people that are hungover from the night before, sitting in that meeting, chugging their coffee, half falling asleep. They're the people that are biting their tongue. And guess who you just became? You just became the man. You just became the suit. You just became the person that put in the work. So now you're taking the forefront of that meeting and your ideas are getting out there. And those people who hate on what they gave up on, they're going to hate on you and they're going to tell you, at least what we say in the military, hey man, when do you join the dark side? Because you're trying to make your way. And look, that is just rubbish that you need to get rid of. That is just flack. Get rid of those people, step in front of the limelight, take control. If you're a nonconformist, the only way to be a true nonconformist in this world is you absolutely have to risk it all. And I'm talking about being an entrepreneur. If you never want a boss, everybody has a boss except the true, authentic entrepreneur that starts a company of their own. And if that's you, hell yeah, go for it, brother or sister, because that's the American dream. But a lot of people along the way on their American dream realize that it's hard AF and you have to sacrifice sleep. You have to sacrifice time. You have to sacrifice everything that you want in life. You have to rack up credit card debt. You got a massive amount of fear and anxiety and can't sleep at night. It's going to age you 5 extra years. And then you're like, oh man, this American dream isn't as easy as I thought it was going to be, not having a boss. Maybe I should have just sat at my cush job making 90 or 120,000. That's the decision you have to make. if you want to be a true no shit, free as a bird, entrepreneur, nonconformist, and do whatever you want. If you want to be like an Elon Musk or a Bezos or a Gates, that's what you got to be. But most of us are not that. We can do that on the side. We can have our little side hustle. But in the company that you're in, the job that is paying to have the roof over your head and the lifestyle that you have that you should be appreciative of, if you're a nonconformist, you can be a nonconformist and live in that world as long as you present yourself at the right time, in the right manner, with clarity and critical thinking. But just remember, you might become the person that you didn't want to be, which is that great quote from Batman, which is, you can die a hero or live long enough to become a villain. See you next time.